Explore the world without having to leave your kitchen. Join me as I take some of the most popular dishes from around the globe and give them a healthy twist. Hello and welcome to another episode of Healthy Around the World, where we travel the world through our taste buds. And today we are visiting the beautiful and potentially one of my favorite places on earth, the beautiful islands of Hawaii. And the dish that we are creating today is known as a Loco Moco. So a Loco Moco, unlike a locomotion, a Loco Moco is a local dish that was created in about the 1940s in a little town called Hilo, which is in the big island of Hawaii. And this dish was designed to feed some very hungry teenagers. So it is a burger patty that is then placed on a mound of rice, and this is the traditional version. It is slathered in gravy and then it is topped with a fried egg. But we're going to be doing the healthy twist to it today. So we're not using rice, we're still going to make a patty, we're still going to make a very delicious gravy, and of course we are totally going to top that all with a bit of an egg as well. So let's get into the recipe. It is actually has a few components involved, but it doesn't take that long to put together. So the patty that I'm making today is a beef patty. You could use chicken, you could use turkey, or you could even use lamb. And in my bowl here, I have 250 grams of grass-fed beef, which is about 8.8 ounces. So that's the first thing. Choose the meat that you want to choose. We're also going to be adding a few bits and pieces into that meat just to make it a bit tasty and delicious. So I've got an onion here, or half an onion. You see this small onion, and cut it into chunks because we're going to be popping that into my food processor because we want to mince it up really fine. Now you don't have to use a red onion like I'm using. You could in fact choose a white onion if you wanted to. So the onion goes in there. I'm also just going to add in a teaspoon of finely chopped garlic, but I'm going to add it into the onion so it can be even further chopped down to make sure it's really well blended through our mince. So that goes in, give it a bit of a blend up. And just to make sure that our onion is getting really well minced, using a spatula, you just want to scrape down the sides of the food processor. Back to blending, back to mincing. And the reason why we mince is because we want the onion to not be in big chunks, because it's not so tasty when it goes through a burger especially. So the food processor really does help to give us a very fine onion texture, which is what we're after. So that is going to go into my little bowl, just scraping it all in, making sure we're getting everything out there. And I'm also going to be adding in just a few different flavors as well, just to give it a bit of a boost. And one of those flavors that I'm going to be adding, I have some paprika here. Now this paprika is a sweet paprika, and the reason why I'm using paprika, because it has a bit of a smoked quality to it, which you guys probably already know. So I want to add that little bit of smokiness. So I'm going to be adding in a teaspoon of paprika, and as I was saying, this is the sweet version, so it's not spicy. So just in case you're wondering, and just look at that tin. Isn't that the most gorgeous tin you've ever seen? I love it. So we've got our paprika in there. We're also going to, well, we might as well put in the mince now. So I'm just going to whack that mince in. We're also going to be adding to it, just once again, we want flavor. And one of the flavors that I'm going to be adding is my famous sticky sauce. So you know there's ginger and garlic and lime and apple cider vinegar in this tamari mix. So it has a wonderful, wonderful flavour. And just 1 tablespoon of that can go in there. Because my beef mince doesn't have a lot of fat content, it's quite a lean one, I'm actually going to be adding, this is a little sneaky little trick I learned some years ago, I'm actually going to be adding a tablespoon or 2 of a coconut milk, a nice thick, good quality coconut milk, which is just going to help to bring the patty together, but it's also going to help to give it a bit of a creamy feel when you bite into your patty. So a little cool little trick for you guys. So once the coconut cream is in, I'm going to take up, I've just got a handful straight out of my garden. I have a handful of parsley here, so continental or European parsley, which I'm going to chop up and add in. You don't have to use parsley. There's a lot of herbs that you could actually use for this job when it comes to adding a bit more flavor to your patty mixture. You could use basil, you could use even coriander, you could use mint, you could use chives, you could even use rosemary or sage or any of those types of herbs, you know, like thyme work really well in patties. But my parsley is just such abundance in my garden at the moment that I have decided, oh, the smell is good, I've decided to add some parsley. You're after about a tablespoon in total. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to say, the mixture that we have here is enough for 2 portions, so for 2 serves. So that goes in there. Of course, we're going to want to add a little bit of salt. So I'm just grinding in some mineral salt there. Pepper as well, bit of black pepper. Going to grind that in. Freshly milled is always best when it comes to pepper. So that's going in there. And to help to bind everything together, which is also really important, and also to add some fiber content to our patty, I'm going to be adding in 2 teaspoons of psyllium husks, which are a great binding agent, but as I said, really good for fiber as well. So 2 teaspoons of our psyllium husks go in there. And I'm going to put on some gloves because it's always the best way. It's always the best way to deal with mincing things together, and it is one of those jobs that definitely pays to get involved with your hands. So just to keep everything nice and clean, throw on a pair of gloves, ready to go, and then you literally just with your hands. But before I do that, I'm going to take a step over here because I'm going to just begin to heat up my frying pan. So I'm using a heavy bottomed pan. I'm using my cast iron frying pan, and I'm putting it down onto medium to low heat because it is cast iron, just to get things going a bit, just to start heating things up. So over to our patty, let's start mixing and mincing and squeezing. It is such a wonderful hands-on job. It really is. And what you'll find, oh, the smell, by the way, the paprika coming off this is fabulous. So what you'll find is as you're going along and you're mincing, what you're looking for is you're looking for the patty to be able to hold its own. So it's holding its shape when you're mincing it together. And then you know you've got enough moisture in there. You don't want too much moisture though, and that's really going to be dependent on the quality or what type of meat you use for the base of the patty. So I'm really happy with how you can see how that's really holding together well, which is good. So taking up your mince, all you want to do, and I'll grab myself up a plate here to lay my patties onto. So remember, this makes 2 serves. So you can weigh it off if you want to get them absolutely perfect. Or you can guesstimate, which I'm going to do today, is I'm going to make a bit of a guess. Have a little feel. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Yeah, I think I might just add a bit more to that one now that I'm feeling this one in my hand. But they make like really decent sized patties just from that. its raw amount before you add obviously the onion and all the other bits and pieces is 125 grams per person, which is a good sized patty. But once you add everything else, it takes it up to about 150 to 160 gram patty per person, which is really, really good, really generous. Okay, so once you're happy that your balls are pretty evenly sized and shaped, you know, it's good to start off with a ball, because then we're going to flatten. And I don't want to flatten them too much. So the way to flatten them is you always work on one at a time, and what you do with your hands sort of create almost like a round-ish shape, which is going to use to mold the sides. So you flatten the top, and as you're flattening the top, you mold the sides. And what you're going to get is a nice shaped patty that is ready to go into our pan. So if you find when you're doing this that it starts to crack around the edges, you may need to add a little bit more moisture just to hold it together. And I would do that with just a little bit more of the coconut milk, maybe a tablespoon or two is required. But I'm pretty happy with how my patties are turning out. So we're just going to quickly mold the other one. Remember, so using the hands to go around the edge, flattening with the top, hands around the edge, flattening with the top. All right, looking good. Happy it's not too crumbly as well. So at this point in time, once you've done this molding part, you may want to, and you can do this, is to leave them in the fridge for about an hour just to firm up a little bit. It does make them a little bit easier to pan fry or to cook. Of course, you can barbecue these, but if you want to speed that up even more, is just pop them into the freezer for half an hour and they'll just firm up really nicely for you. If your mincemeat is really cold out of the fridge, I'm not too bothered about it, which mine is, so I'm actually just going to go to work here just to drop them straight in. But you want to make them really easy to work with. That little bit of time in chilling in the fridge or freezer works really well. So remember, pans on medium. You can either use a canola spray oil, not canola, that stuff's no good. You want to use a coconut oil or an avocado spray into your pan just a little bit. I'm all out of spray. We're still in lockdown. Didn't want to go shopping just to buy coconut oil spray. So I'm just using a little bit of hard coconut oil. I'm just going to put in half a teaspoon. Spray's better because you use even less. And as well as that, I'm going to add a little bit of our lovely sticky sauce as well, which is going to help to color the patties as they cook. And also, once again, we are all about the flavor, as you guys know. So you don't want to have your pan too hot, especially if you are using cast iron. Just be aware, you don't want it to be too hot. You don't want it to start to burn, because we're actually going to use this pan to create our gravy as well. So you don't want to burn things as they're going along. So those go into your pan, keeping an eye on it, of course. But the best thing to speed up this process, once your pan's sizzling, your patties have been very carefully dropped in, because they're so nice and thick. The ideal scenario here is either pop a lid on top, which is what I'm doing, or if you're doing this in the barbecue, lower the hood, just so we get this environment that's cooking from the heat from the bottom, but we've also got really, really good heat all around as we create almost like an oven environment in our pan. So these patties, depending on the size that you make them, they could take anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes to fully cook, and we do want to make sure that that mince is fully cooked through as well. So 8 to 12 minutes, but definitely keep an eye on them as you're going. Okay, let's have a little bit of a check, see what's happening inside. It is all looking pretty fabulous. So making sure, I suppose the main thing to keep an eye on when you are making your patties, and if you are doing it in a pan, is we don't want to burn the base of the pan, because we are making the gravy. So I'm just going to take myself up a plate, because this looks pretty good, and pop these off onto a plate. while I use the pan and all the goodies that have been cooked onto the base of the pan to make our wonderful gravy. So the gravy that I'm making today, and really when it comes to Loco Moco, this is like one of the most important parts of the whole dish, is the idea that you are going to be using gravy to really create this lovely, luscious flavor. So into the pan, one's still on medium heat. I'm going to add 400 mils, and I'm using beef stock today just to make it a bit more traditional. But when you choose your beef stock, just make sure you're choosing one that is low sodium and natural and has hardly, if not no, preservatives. So 400 mils, yes, I know that's a lot of gravy, right? But trust me, it really does make this dish amazing. So 400 mils of our beef stock is going in there, which is, like I said, about 14 ounces. I'm going to use a spatula to just very gently go along and begin to scrape the bottom of the pan. I've just turned the temperature up just a little bit, not too much, but I just want to bring it to a little bit of a boil. And we're going to add a few more flavors into that as well. So one of the flavors that I love to add is I have my slightly large jar. I think it's nearly a kilo. It's 865 grams, which is about 1.5 pounds of mustard. And I'm using my favorite mustard, it's sugar-free mustard, and it's a Dijon mustard from France. It's absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to start with a tablespoon of this mustard. And the reason I really like this mustard is it's not really hot and sharp. It's got quite a delicate taste to it, so I find it really, really nice. So I'm going to start with a tablespoon of the mustard, using my spatula just to kind of work that in. As you can see, I've got a bit of steam coming off the pan, which is important, and it's beginning to come to the boil as well, which is great. So we're going to start off with that. I'm also going to add in a little bit of tamari as well, which is our gluten-free soy. So that's going to go in. I'm going to start off with a tablespoon of tamari. I'm also going to add in a teaspoon of sesame oil. You don't have to add sesame oil, but it's an optional extra if you want to. And then we're going to use the psyllium husks to thicken it. So that's kind of the base of our flavors. Keep on giving it a little bit of a stir. You may want to, at this point in time, grab yourself a whisk and just to whisk it through. But yes, it is a decent amount of gravy. But there is, yes, there is a lot to be said for covering your food in all this wonderful, wonderful sauce. And you know, being able to create a sauce like this or a gravy like this is one of the cornerstones to cooking. And in fact, if you are the chef saucier in a professional kitchen brigade, you tend to be in charge of the kitchen, because the saucier, or the person who creates the sauces, is one of the key jobs in any professional brigade or professional kitchen. So I've just got a spoon because I want to give it a bit of a taste. This is going to tell me what I need to add, if anything. Flavor's good already. It's quite a simple flavor, but it's delicious. I have to tell you, it's already tasting good. It is definitely going to need a little bit of thickness. And we're going to use psyllium husks for that. Now just be careful when you're adding psyllium husks, because it can go from a little bit of thickness to a jelly really, really quickly. So I'm starting with just a teaspoon, sprinkle it over the top, back to my whisk, and whisk that through. So your psyllium husks are great because they do have that really high fiber content. But if you are using them to thicken a gravy or a sauce, just go slowly. Like, you know, start with a teaspoon of psyllium husks, let it whisk in. It is heat that helps to thicken it as well as time. So, you know, rather than adding a lot all at once, add a bit, wait, have a little look, have a little taste, because your palate will also be able to detect the consistency as well. It could probably do with one more teaspoon. Maybe I'll start with half. I don't want to go overboard, because I have done this before and completely made jelly. Gravy jelly, not so good. So start with maybe a half. I can always add a bit more if I want to. Whisk that in, but even just with that little bit, that little half, it's starting to come together now, and I don't think I want to take it any further than that. So I'm pretty happy with the state of my gravy. I don't feel like I need to add any more mustard. Definitely don't need any more psyllium husks. And it's all tasting pretty good actually, to be honest with you. So I'm just going to take up my little pot here. I've got this tiny cute little sieve, which is just going to help to take away any sort of potential burnt bits that may have stuck to the base. So just run that through, and you know, I could probably have made more gravy. Gravy is really important to this dish, let me tell you. You ask any Hawaiian, you know, what makes a loco moco, and it's literally the gravy. They will tell you it's the gravy. Yeah, look, the burger patty is important, the egg is wonderful too, but it is definitely a bit of that gravy that helps things along quite nicely. So that is just work it through with a spoon, getting rid of any lumps, any potential lumps. I mean, I have to say, I did choose the smallest little sieve in history. If you've got a bigger one, go for it, but not too fine. Even though mine has quite large holes, it's so small it's taken its time. All right, so that can just go into the bin. Don't need that. Goodbye. And then gravy can just go off to the side now, because we want to do a couple more actions, just a couple. As I spoke about earlier, an egg is a really important part of this dish, totally important. So we are going to be cooking an egg, and ideally the egg that you are creating for this dish is sunny side up. So we will be cooking it, I'm cooking it in my wok here. You want to put it onto a medium temperature. Once again, a little spray of coconut oil or avocado oil, or in my case just a small amount, probably like 1/3 of a teaspoon of coconut oil is going to go. Don't need much at all, and you're going to be having 1 egg per person. So the egg, as I was saying, is another really important element of this dish, and having it sunny side up means that when you break into the yolk, it really does help to give moisture to this dish as well. So it is a fairly important step. Don't let them tell you otherwise. So crack your egg in. Remember, 1 egg per person goes in. And the reason why I'm using a non-stick pan is it just means I don't have to add quite as much oil to it, which is really good. So eggs go in. Feel free to season the top of those eggs, of course. A little bit of mineral salt is very, very nice. And then once again, a lid goes on, makes it cook faster, which is really good. And while that is cooking, it's not going to take very long. We can pull this dish all together. I just want to talk you through how I have done the rice portion of this dish. So I'm using vegetable rice, and the type of vegetables that I'm using in here is, yes, I know it may look like cauliflower, but I've actually got 2 types of vegetables in here. Yes, one of them is cauliflower, which I have here, but the other vegetable that I've put into here is kohlrabi. Now, kohlrabi, it's a big bulb. It either comes in purple, or you also can find them in white. Kohlrabi can be riced exactly like cauliflower. So for 2 portions, I allow a total of 500 grams of a combination of kohlrabi and cauliflower, cut into smallest chunks. Obviously, you want to peel the kohlrabi, and then you just pop it into your handheld blender or into your blender, blend it up till it's that consistency, and then you can either steam it, or I microwaved my vegetable rice on high for 4 minutes. So once it's done, which is mine is here, you want to season your vegetables, give them a bit of a mix through, obviously serve this hot as well. So that's how you do rice, and I love the addition of kohlrabi to this rice rather than just having plain old cauliflower. It's wonderful. It's really good, but instead of kohlrabi, you could use celeriac as well. You could use swede, which makes a really nice rice, or rutabaga, but I'm in love with kohlrabi at the moment, I have to tell you. Let's check our eggs. Looking good. Remember, sunny side is important. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to leave the lid off the egg as well, because I don't want it to continue cooking. I want it to be still runny, so we have that ability to break into it, which is really important. So grabbing myself up a bowl, you want to start with the rice when it comes to plating up, and give yourself a really good, couple of big spoons of this rice, because once you get the patty on and the gravy and the egg, it's amazing how much vegetables you can actually get through. So a nice big couple of spoons of your vegetable rice. I'm just being really careful to make a mound. You can just plonk it on, but I'm being exceptionally careful here to get a lovely mound of rice, a little wee mountain or a maunga of rice. That goes on first. The next thing that you want to pop on is your patty. So grabbing up our cooked patties here, and I'm just going to plonk down very carefully the patty on top, just like that. You know what? I'm not going to, actually I need that. I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to keep on mounding. I know it sounds crazy, but I have to. All right, gravy's next. Gravy is next. And even with that little bit of psyllium, I probably could have used less psyllium. It's even a little bit thick for my liking, but that's okay. So then the hot gravy gets poured all over. And the Hawaiians literally call this gravy all over. They love gravy. I'm going to add a bit more. They love gravy, and especially when it comes to Loco Moco. So that goes on, and then we're going to grab up one of our eggs, and our egg goes on top of the patty just like that. Nice. Whoa, it wants to slide off. I'm having to convince it not to do that right now. Don't slide off. And then I'm just going to finish that off with some spring onion, and I'm just going to be using the green part, and this is for a little bit of color. Onion flavor is really nice too, so just some light sprinkles here of our spring onions, go on top of our egg, around our gravy, just like that. And the very last thing that I'm going to be adding is just a little grinding of black pepper, just like that, for the most authentic, healthy version of the Hawaiian Loco Moco. It is a treat for the eyes. It's also a treat for the belly as well. Plus, you are doing your body a favor. So I hope you've enjoyed this version of a healthy twist to a Loco Moco. I also have this version, not the healthy version, but one of my very first cookbooks that I ever wrote, which was called Breakfast Around the World. It was named as one of the best cookbooks in the last 25 years in the world, and that was through the Gourmand World Cookbook Awards. So my book, Breakfast Around the World, Hawaii was in there. I made a Loco Moco, not a healthy version. So now guess what? You get the healthy version of the recipe as well. So thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Healthy Around the World. I'm really enjoying bringing these cooking classes to you guys, because it means I get to travel, I get to remember trips that I've made, I get to plan places that I want to go as well, and I'm doing it all through my taste buds and all through my belly. So thank you guys for joining me. Make sure to join us on our recipe sharing website, which is Modkai. I'll be sharing this recipe in full for you on Modkai. You can grab it there, that's modkai.com. And also join us on Facebook, join us on YouTube, that's Bridget's Healthy Kitchen on YouTube. We're also on Instagram, and we're on Pinterest as well. So I hope to see you guys back here in the kitchen for another episode next week, same time, same place, of Healthy Around the World. Take care. Bye.